a lot of valuable insights from Sandra Dimasa consulting around how to put an impactful winning CV. In studio today, we are very happy to welcome her back, our career coach and executive business coach and NLP, which is neuro-linguistic programming expert, Sandra Dimasa. Good morning, Sandra, and welcome.
Good morning. I'm so glad to be back. And to the rest of Africa, Sabona, Dumelang, Goeiemorgen, and who's it, mevrouw?
Okay. You know what? I actually love something that I should have said. Sandra Dimasa is the director of Sandra D Consulting with over 24 years of experience across various industries. She's an internationally accredited business coach by the ICF based in the US, as well as counselor, coach, leadership, and career development specialist. Sandra, like I said, welcome. You have spent many years sharing your expertise and passion to empower the youth in our nation through various interventions that you have spearheaded. Tell us, last week you gave our listeners powerful tips on putting CV. Can we talk today about the next step? How to prepare for a job interview?
Let's do that. Boitumelo, so last week, thank you so much for having me. I gave some great tips on how to put your CV together, and you can always follow that on our blog and on our post. But today, Cosmo FM 90.5 is always going to bring you nothing but the best.
Absolutely.
So we've prepared for the CV. Let's talk about how to prepare for that job interview. So this is great. If you're being selected for the interview, this is a great result. Then you know you're on track, right? But the interview process can be tough and sometimes a little bit scary, right? But I can assure you, through my years of experience, I know that good preparation will make any job interview 10 times easier. In fact, I would really absolutely say that your interview success is 90% down to your preparation.
Thank you, Sandra. So how do you exactly prepare for an interview?
Well, drawing on my years in the HR industry and my experience, I've compiled the most comprehensive interview guide. And today I'm so happy to be launching that on Cosmo FM. I will be sharing in today's interview some great nuggets from this guide that I put together on today's show. So today's career development interview will definitely show you step by step how to prepare for your interview from the day you get your interview request to the moment you walk into that interview room with confidence.
We are very lucky to have you in our life, right? So, okay, so let's assume you've been selected for the interview. Where actually from the point?
Okay. So, you've made it through to the interview stage, which means you've already beaten hundreds of other candidates and the employers are seeing potential in you. This is already a positive step. I know we anxiously wait for the budget talk on Wednesday. With unemployment at its absolute high in South Africa, we know if you get an opportunity to get into an interview, you want to make sure you shine, right? So the interviewer already is suspecting that you can do the job. All you have to do is prove them right when you meet them. That's obviously a lot easier said than done, but like I said, you're going to hear me saying this a lot. Prepare properly. If you do that, there should be no reason why you will not land that job offer.
I myself also do agree. You have to prepare. So what are the two things that you should do straight away once you have received the interview request?
Okay. First of all, they give you the interview request. These are the two things you've got to do immediately. Send the requester, so the person who sent you the email, a message and thank them for the invite, confirming that you will definitely be attending. Why do we do this? Well, I think it speaks a lot about your personality and your attitude of gratitude. This is a small touch, but it will show that you are a professional. And this will set the ground and start to build an awesome, good impression before you even attend. The second thing you want to be doing is book the necessary time off. So whether it's going to be time off work or booking your kids into a childcare, get your time freed up ASAP so that you can go to that interview and focus your full attention on being prepared and absolutely present in that moment.
Absolutely. So now that's the second part is now the preparation begins. To some of our listeners out there, this could be their first interview experience. No doubt they may be feeling overwhelmed, as well as a well-known and experienced business coach. What would your advice rather be to them if they had to ask you, where do I begin?
I can completely empathize with Tumelo. It's incredibly nerve-wracking. And I really understand how that feeling. You know, I've spoken to a lot of the youth that I am coaching, and they tell me about that feeling of nerves and anxiety. So that's why mostly I decided to put this guide together, because I really want to help empower our youth to put their best foot forward. So where do we start? Most employees will give you, let's say, give or take 2 days notice for an interview. In any rare case, though, you may have little less time to prepare. The few days or even hours building up to your interview are where you need to do your most work. This is where the gravitas of the work lies. This is the hard work. This is where you're going to do the bulk of research and preparation. So in my guide, put together by Sandra D Consulting, I look at the work being split into the following categories. So the work that you're going to be focusing on, number one, you want to understand the company. Then you want to understand the role that you're applying for. Also, very important, I'm going to touch on this a little bit later in our interview, you want to know whether or not you are a good fit for the role. So I'm going to give you some tips around figuring that one out. Know your weaknesses. I know that question is always going to come up. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? Nothing wrong with knowing your limitations. Just putting it out there. Talk about that in a sec. Always prepare what you need to take with you, right? And do this the day before. Practice some common interview questions. I'm going to touch on that. And prepare questions to ask the interviewer.
Thank you, Sandra. At home, I believe you have a pen and a paper next to you. Taking notes from what has been said. If you don't, we're going to give you a 5 minutes break to go and grab a paper and a pen and some water and to come and get the tips of how to prepare for an interview. Let me give you a song by Zanda Kumalo. What a very powerful and beautiful song with a very amazing vocal on point. I do believe they're very on point. It is 8:20. Let's get right back to it. I hope you have your pen and paper right there, taking some tips. Yes. So Sandra, why is it so important that you understand the company already so early on the recruitment process? I mean, you're not even sure at this early stage that you will even get the job.
Boy, Tumelo, you're right. You're kind of thinking, am I going to be over-prepared? Am I going to get my hopes up high? But we're going to come back to understanding the company. So if you want that interviewer to take you seriously as a candidate, you are going to need to understand at least basic information about the organization and what the organization does. So this is also going to help you make the decision for yourself whether the role is right for you or not. You know, often I say to guys, you are being interviewed, right? But at the same time, you need to think about, do I really want to work here in this environment? Do I believe in their values and their purpose?
Okay, I hear you. So what exactly do you need to know?
Okay, so these are the few items I think you should look at definitely. Number one, what services, products, or solutions do they offer? So why does this company exist? Who are their customers, their clients? Who are their competitors? Which markets, areas, even countries do they operate in? I would always Google maybe recent news or achievements around this company. Very important for me, company culture and values. I often see this. Most people stay in organizations because of the powerful culture and values. Once your values are aligned personally to the company's values that you work with, you have a lifetime of a beautiful work relationship. And then you know what, it always helps to try and find out a little bit about the key people in the business. Now, I always suggest that if you're applying for a company that's relatively small, then it will be enough to simply research the company as a whole, okay? Because it's pretty small, you can do that. But if you're applying for a big organization, a position there, then you know what, I would encourage you to focus your research specifically into that area that you are applying for.
Thank you very much, Sandra. Please do keep on taking notes. So where can we find this information?
Definitely take notes. There's a whole lot of resources available to you. The first thing I would say is go to the company website. Go there, and that's your first point of call. Go to the company website, and at least this will give you a general idea of this company's offerings and the markets they operate in, along with any figures in business. I always find that very impressive when you can give back figures in your interview. Now, many companies will also have a blog, like I do for my consultancy, and this will give you a lot of insight into some of the recent work and company culture. I think knowing the stuff that's relevant and topical kind of shows that you're really on top of what's recently happening in that company. So that's your first one. It's your company website. The next one you want to look at is your news and industry websites. In order to find out about the firm's current affairs, you can try scanning through some of the relevant industry publications online, or even running a news search on Google. Social media, the language that millennials love. Social media is the bomb, right? So what you want to be doing is going onto social media and gaining a lot of big insights into a firm's recent campaigns and even how they interact with some of their customers. I always like to find out how does the customer experience the company, and you'll get that. You'll hear the good, the bad, the ugly, always important to know. So also Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, get on there, search those sites, scan through, again, their recent activity, and even check up on some of their employee profiles if you can find them. Remember, if you have a recruiter, you need to use them as a helpful touch point. So ask your recruiter if they have anything that they could share with you about the company before you go into that interview. You may acquire some insider knowledge that you weren't even aware of, and maybe that's not necessarily published on any internet or social media platform. And then remember, check your LinkedIn connections. Last week, I touched on making sure you give your LinkedIn name as long as your LinkedIn profile looks professional, right? So you don't want to be having a picture of you partying it down this weekend on LinkedIn, okay? You want to be doing all the professional things on LinkedIn. It's a slightly long shot, I know, but if you search the LinkedIn connections for employees of the firm, it might give you a chance to pick out a friendly face who already works there. And if you have a connection, call them, ask them, what is it really like to work there? There's really no hard and fast rules on how long you should spend researching and revising information, but just ensure to remember to speak very confidently and with substance about the company on the actual interview day.
I agree. Confidence is everything. That could help you get the job. Sandra, do you have any quick tips on this one?
So here's a quick tip, a nice treat for Monday morning. Search for the interviewer on LinkedIn and see if you can find out a little bit about their role and their background. They may be able to reveal some insights to you about who they are and who's going to be interviewing. Although, I must warn you, don't add the interviewer as a connection on your LinkedIn page at this stage. It just comes across as a little bit too forward. And as some recruiters say to me, creepy.
You mentioned understanding the role. What would this entail?
Okay, so let's look at understanding this role. Employers will not offer you a job that is going to reach you to an interview stage. That doesn't mean, if you don't get it, that, you're going to try anyway. But it doesn't mean that you don't have to grasp the role so early on and have a full understanding of the job being offered. So this is what I'm going to encourage you to do. Familiarize yourself with that job description thoroughly, and be sure to ask for one if you haven't already received it. If the job spec is missing any information that you need, once again, call on the help of your recruiter and ask them to fill in the gaps for you. So let's have a look. Okay, so you know, in order to understand your role, I'm going to give you some pointers. Okay, so
Okay, thank you, Sandra. Before you can continue with that, it's 27 past 8. In just 3 minutes, we can continue because in just 30 minutes, it will be 8:30. We'll be getting our news and sports in news. Thank you very much, Kilebkhile. So, to those that are looking for jobs, I have some very few jobs here. They say, we are hiring Gracie security officers needed to work at Grand Sekinago North and must be pre-registered with retail experience. Send your CVs to adminpolygraphspro.co.za. Send your CV at adminpolygraphs.co.za. And others, we are looking for hard-working ethical rental property consultant to sustain and grow existing rentals. Work must have a good communication skills, must be efficient and reliable. Ability to multitask and deal with a difficult and unreasonable client is a must. Job roles will include prospecting and listing new rental properties, conducting viewings and inspections at properties, with the tenants conducting credit checks, signing lease agreements, facilitating necessary maintenance on our managed properties. Previous experience in a similar role will be advantageous. Must have their own car and driver's license. Competitive salary offered. Basic plus commission. Medical aid. Patrol. Office is located in Samatrand. For more info, email with CVC to nikki@straw@haircost.co.za. We are looking for an experienced brake crane truck driver with valid code 14 who is able to operate the case to start as soon as possible. Right back to end. So sorry about that. If you, in order to fully understand the role, you should be able to. What points you should cover?
okay, so understanding the role. So, you know, as you said now, so just before I get into that, Boitumelo, how awesome. You were talking about some jobs available and, you know, what you need to do to apply. So please, guys, remember, it is not all, you know, doom and gloom. There are jobs out there. Just put yourself out there and do not be susceptible to the negative influences of other people. So, you know, let's come back to what are the points that you need to be able to cover confidently in understanding your role. So the first thing you want to do is understand what is the overall goal of the role. So what does that goal actually do to contribute to the bigger picture? You know, which area or team you will be working with and who will you be reporting to or managing. Which people are you required to interact with? So maybe, you know, understanding your customers, your suppliers, a lot of regulatory tools around what's going to be impacting on that role. I would also encourage some tools and software packages you'll be using, products and knowledge around the services that's going to be offered. You want to know a lot about that. And, you know, what kind of work will you be producing? And it depends on the type of industry that you're going in. For example, are you going to be compiling reports, designing work or web applications? Or are you going to be, for example, using physical products and working like with cars or, you know, as a mechanic for, applying for a role in that kind of industry? Very, very important for me. This is like a deal breaker. Absolutely. You need to definitely understand the environment you're going to be working with. So is it a busy sales floor? Is it a high-profile government building? It's important that you have an idea of what's going to, you know, come and face you in this role.
Why is it so important to understand? Why would you be a good fit for the role?
Okay, so once you understand the company and you understand your role, this part should be fairly easy. You need to match your skills and knowledge with the job responsibilities. Now, look at each requirement on that job description, make sure that you meet them and that it speaks to your skills and experience. So, doing this, you need to prepare your most important questions for the interview and make sure you're able to answer them, right? Having looked at that, much of the interview process is based around providing why you are the suitable candidate for this role. So having it mapped out in your mind like that already is going to be very helpful. So what I'm going to encourage you to do, go over your notes a few times in order to build your confidence for this interview, and it'll, you know, building up to the interview, it'll help you to properly familiarize yourself with all of this information.
Now, that popular question around what are your strengths and weaknesses is bound to come up, right? What's the most professional way to talk about your weaknesses without having it impact the overall success of your interview?
You know, Boitumelo, I get asked this a lot. You know, what do I say? Do I expose myself? Am I going to be vulnerable? And you know what? It's so sexy, I have to say that in a very intellectual way, to see confidence, but it's also really impressive to see somebody who embraces their imperfections. So now you need to know your strengths, right? It's important because they really help you to understand your weaknesses. And as interviewers will usually ask you about it, be open about it. These are likely to be some elements of the job where your skills won't quite match up to the employer's expectation. But you know what? It's okay. How you handle your shortcomings is what matters. So remember, it is so important. The idea is here to recognize your weaknesses and have a plan on how you're going to combat them in the workplace and ensure that you're going to perform well in the job. I'm trying to think of an example to make this real for you. So, okay, let me use this example. Let's say that you are going to be applying for a job where you tick most of the boxes except one qualification, right? In case you are asked about this, you should have a rough answer prepared along the lines of, okay, example I'm going to give you. Although I don't have the technical qualifications, I do truly feel that my 5 years of experience have given me the knowledge to deal with any situation in this area. I'm looking forward to furthering my qualifications this year. You see, knowing your weakness is almost reassuring the interviewer that you are not going to stop self-development and that it's not going to stop you from doing an awesome job. So showing that you are looking to improve your skills in that area with either training or studying will also gain you a lot of positive impression points.
One of my close friends was so nervous before his interview at 9 a.m. He woke up at 7 a.m., got ready, headed off in traffic. Worst of all, he experienced load shedding and only arrived to his 9 a.m. at 9:45. This made him feel more worse, and the interviewers were clearly not impressed. What advice could you give around this type of challenge?
Oh my gosh, I've heard of these scenes so many times, and it's absolutely horrific. Like, your anxiety levels couldn't be worse. What could you tell your friend? What could he have done better? So I always say this, you know what, plan the journey. If you're traveling to a significant distance of a place, then you need to, in terms of preparing for your job interview, plan the route well in advance. So whether you're driving, whether you're taking public transport, learn your routes and even have a backup alternative in case of travel disruptions. Essentially, what you want to be doing is, please, whatever you do, don't be late. If you're not familiar with the area of the building, it may be worth making a practice journey before the time. And you know what? This is really going to help alleviate those nerves on the day.
So let's say the day of the interview arrives. What do you need to take with you?
Okay, so the day arrives. This is what you need to take. I call it interview essentials. So to those of you listening, you definitely want to be taking down these points because you're so excited or so nervous or a combination of the two that you're not sure where to start. So let's write this down. It's interview essentials. What you need to take with you, make sure that it's ready well in advance. Number one, multiple copies of your CV to ensure you have a copy for everyone you meet. You can print them off, and you know what, you do this just before the time. Some people like to work off their iPads, their cell phones or their laptops, but some other people also prefer a nice hard copy. Take a pen and a pad with you to take notes. I often see individuals in an interview situation where they'll ask the interviewer, sorry, can I lend your pen? Eek! Don't do that. Take your pen. Have some prepared questions that you're going to ask. This also looks very, very professional. Take the job description with you and also any notes that you've made around that job description. It's always easier to go back and refer. And then please don't forget the interview details. And yes, we spoke about load shedding now. It's a real, absolute way of life. It is the new normal in South Africa. So you don't want to just be keeping all the information on any electronic device. You want to be writing that down as well. Okay, what else should you take with you? Definitely take with you any relevant certificates that the interviewer has asked you to bring. A nice thing to take with you always helps is any examples of work that you've done. So, for example, if you're in the creative industry, such as you're a graphic designer, bring a portfolio of work with you. It helps you create a bit of a visual impact. So non-creative professionals need to think outside of the box, though. So maybe what you could do is, so you're not the graphic designer, maybe you're the accountant. So take things like sales, figures, awards, and client testimonials. Always have a small folder or a bag to put everything in it. It just helps you look and stay and feel more professional. And finally, you will also need to make sure that anything you are planning to wear is clean and ready on the day.
So any advice you can share with us, Sandra, on the type of questions I'll be asked?
Yeah, sure. So, you know what? Although you can never predict every question that's going to be asked of you, I mean, sometimes we wish we were had a genie in a lamp, right? But you can definitely be sure that some of the more common interview questions will arise in one way, form, or another. Now, these are the 3 top questions I often see. Number 1, why do you want this job? Number 2, why should we hire you? And number 3, why are you leaving your current job? You need to know the answer to these 3 questions in particular well before you walk into that interview.
Sandra, as an applicant, I'm wondering, would I be allowed to ask the interviewer any questions?
Absolutely. I think it's an absolutely brilliant idea. In fact, I strongly encourage you to ask questions because it really shows an attitude of wanting to learn. But ask the right questions, and asking the right questions will definitely make you appear keen and diligent and is going to impress the interviewer. You may already have some questions about the role, but if you don't, try to ask something on the subject of progression and development to let the interviewer know why you are looking to work here, and why you're going to show them that you are the person who's going to give them that hard work and that commitment.
Thank you, Sandra. Let's take a bit of a break, and then we'll get back to it and get to know more. What are the ways that you prepare for a job interview? DJ Makorisa with something so let's get right back into it. Any ideas around what kind of questions would I be asked?
Okay, so let's talk about some questions that you could ask the interviewer. Some nice questions are: what opportunities are there for career progression? Do you have any training or development? Do you offer that? And where could I expect to be a year from this role? Into this role, where could I expect to be?
I really don't want to mess this up opportunity. What questions should I avoid asking?
I always laugh at this one because you definitely want to avoid asking questions about your holidays. Oh my gosh, your lunch breaks. You don't want to be talking about that right now. It's really way too early to be asking for time off. I have to share with you, I was an HR director at one stage for a very big retail group. And I interviewed the most dynamic candidates. And I thought they were absolutely phenomenal until they asked me this one question. They said, how much sick leave days do I have? Oh. And I know, right? I was like, eek. And can I take them as soon as I start? I'm like, why? Are you ill? Is there anything I should know? They're like, no, I just kind of wanted to, break myself into the role. Don't do that.
I often hear the ladies say, I haven't got a thing to wear. Okay.
I think we've all done that, eh?
What would you recommend to wear? We wear to an interview?
Okay. Good question. So, to save any last-minute panic on the morning of the interview, pick out what you are going to wear the night before. I know ladies, this might be a little bit more difficult for us, right? Most importantly, make sure that your clothes are clean and ironed. Your shoes are polished. You might think that's not important. People are looking at your every detail. You're selling yourself. And make sure everything is laid out and put out that morning. So work dress code, you'll see it's changed a lot, from when I first started working. In recent times, you see now that many offices are promoting a more casual style. But does this mean you should go with your jeans and tackies? No, absolutely no. So when it comes to the interview stage, always take the safe bet and go smart. I always say, go for the role that you want one day. Go dressed up for that role. So for the men, what I think won't go wrong is if you wear a full suit, a tie with a smart pair of polished shoes. Even if nobody else is wearing that tie, it just says something. It says that I respect that I'm being interviewed and I'm really serious about this. And for the ladies, maybe a smart skirt with a collared shirt and a blazer. That will work nicely. And ladies, with makeup, I always encourage this. I run a lot of image workshops, and you can find out more about that on my blog and on my Facebook page. But the most important thing is you want to be using makeup that's going to enhance your face, not replace your face, right? I know it's tempting, I know.
Okay, so let's imagine the interview day is around a week. I'm feeling a bit nervous. Now what?
Okay, first of all, breathe. Okay, definitely breathe. There's some awesome breathing exercises that you can get from my page. But what you want to do, first thing you're going to do is go over your preparation. So over the last few days, remember, we've spoken about this today, you would have researched the company, studied the job spec, and made notes on your suitability for the role. You would have noted and talked about your weaknesses, more importantly, focusing on how to overcome your weaknesses. You would have practiced some really common interview questions, and you would have prepared some questions to ask the interviewer, right? So just spend around 30 minutes to an hour revisiting all of your preparation to keep everything fresh of mind when your big day arrives.
On the day of, why is arriving 30 minutes early so important?
So, good question. So when you arrive 30 minutes early, it really does set the tone. When you set off, check the travel news again and aim to arrive in the general facility of the interview building around 30 minutes early for two main reasons. Let's say you have an unexpected travel disruptions, and that is not rare, right? Especially if you're traveling in South Africa with load shedding as a challenge. Look, the extra time should hopefully make sure that you get there on time. You don't want to have the incident like your friend who got there at 9:45, the poor chap. Hopefully you should arrive in the area with enough time to do the following. Firstly, find out where is the entrance to the building. So do this first. So don't just sit outside. Go in, find the entrance, familiarize yourself. Maybe find out where's the nearest coffee shop or cafe if you want to get a coffee or a water, and grab a drink while you're going over your notes one last time. But remember, breathe, breathe, breathe.
What about the nerves?
Yep, nerves are so normal. In fact, if you weren't nervous, I would be concerned. So here's a couple of confidence boosters that I suggest, right? So if you suffer from nerves or are just, a little bit anxious, here's a little bit confidence boosting. Remember two things. Number one, the employer who's interviewing you invited you to the interview. So you must have impressed them already. Bear that in mind. Having interviewed lots of people myself, I can definitely tell you that I would not drag somebody through an interview in terms of placing and hiring them if I wasn't already impressed. The interviewer has shown faith in your ability just by interviewing, so go there and prove to that interviewer that they made the right decision. And secondly, put it in context. It's just another interview. So if you manage to land this interview, then it's likely you'll be able to land more interviews. So yes, absolutely, prepare, take it seriously, but remember it's not the end of the world, and I'm a firm believer that if something is meant for you, it's going to be for you.
Absolutely. Sandra, in a summary, are there any closing pearls of wisdom you would like to leave us with?
I love that. Pearls of wisdom. I'm still trying to figure out many pearls. But you know what? I'm hoping that today's guidance has given you everything you need to prepare for your upcoming interview. Essentially, you just need to understand why you are the best candidate for the job and present this case to the interviewer in a professional manner. If you follow all these steps that I've presented today on today's show, I'm telling you now, you are already 90% on your way to having your work done, preparing up to the interview. Now remember, you've probably heard this before, if you fail to prepare, you prepare to fail. And I want to wish all of you good luck and know that you are unique and you always need to pursue those things that set your heart, that set your soul on fire.
Thank you very much, Sandra. What a beautiful, beautiful inside information. So where can we find you?
Follow me absolutely, with absolute pleasure. I would love to hear your feedback and what else do you want to hear on the show. This is about building you as an individual, giving you career tips, business tips. So where can you find me? It's Sandra Damata Consulting at gmail.com, or follow me on Facebook, Sandra Damata Consulting, and you can find me on Twitter as well.
Thank you very, very much, Sandra. I'm looking forward to seeing you again next week. And hopefully it will be more as insightful as it was today. It was very nice to have you blessed us with the presence this morning.
Thank you so much, Boitumelo. And it was an awesome experience to be again in studio with you and Kelebogile.
Oh, thank you very much. Let's give you Zonke with Viva. It's 4 minutes before now, and then we'll leaving you in the capable hands.